Apple has just launched their new iPads. Well, what's the big deal? They do that every year, right? Not quite. You guys remember the iPad Pros? Yes, those super expensive over 1 lakh tablets from Apple? Seems like some of the new generation iPads are actually outperforming the iPad Pros. And what's more, they're cheaper than them. Hey guys, over to here from C4E Tech, and if you do end up enjoying this video, then please consider subscribing and turning on notifications by hitting that bell icon. Let's now get started. Now Apple today launched two new series of iPads. First up, we have the 8th generation iPads. They have gotten some much needed upgrades, powered by the A12 Bionic chips which we saw on the iPhone X. And honestly speaking, they're still quite powerful. These are the ones that start from 29,900. Then the more attractive launch, at least for me, is the iPad Air. This one has the new A14 Bionic, making it more powerful than even the A13Z inside the iPad Pro. And they start at 54,900, way less pricier than the iPad Pros. With that out of the way, let's quickly go through the other major changes here, starting with the 8th generation iPads. The design hasn't changed much. We still have bezels around the 10.2-inch IPS panel, which again is still Retina. The forehead's still there and it holds the FaceTime HD camera, which is blah at 1.2 megapixels. In fact, both the front as well as the rear cameras have remained the same. So 8 megapixel f2.4 snapper to the back. And then taking a look at the rest of the renders, the Touch ID sensor is present to the bottom and the left retains the smart connector. Like the 2019 model before it, the 2020 model too has support for the first generation Apple Pencil, which I'm not a fan of given how it needs to be charged. We can also connect a smart keyboard to it, and thanks to iPadOS 14, the new 2020 iPad has full support for a keyboard as well as a trackpad. If a lot of this seems familiar, that's mainly cause this is the entry-level iPad, and the only big change from the 2019 model is one that we mentioned before. It's a bump up in processing power from the A10 Fusion to the A12 Bionic. So this technically should result in better performance across the board. Now I wish I could confirm for you guys if the new iPad 2020 has more RAM, but sadly that isn't a spec that Apple reveals. Same goes for the battery as well. But if I had to guess, I'm gonna say that Apple didn't tinker around much with them. So that's it for the iPad 2020 edition. Again, it starts from 29,900 for Wi-Fi only and goes up to 41,900 for Wi-Fi plus cellular. Of course, that's for the 32GB internal storage variant. Apple does provide the iPad 8th Gen with a higher 128 gigs of internal storage as well. As for the new iPad Air, it's got a ton of improvements all around the board. Apple has chosen to go with a new borderless look here. Kinda reminds me of the iPad Pro. Thin bezels all around with no space for the round home button. Well, instead of going with Face ID, Apple has chosen to integrate the Touch ID sensor into the power button of the new iPad Air. The dimensions are still the same, which is how Apple has managed to cram in a slightly bigger 10.9-inch liquid retina panel in here. Now, not only do we have more screen real estate, the new iPad Air is supposed to get brighter and sport a wider color gamut. Unfortunately though, the refresh rate here is still the standard 60Hz. 120Hz remains exclusive to the iPad Pros. Continuing with the improvements, Apple is also promising better quality pictures with the new iPad Air, thanks to an improved 12 megapixel rear snapper. As for the front, we have the same 7 megapixel selfie shooter from last year. The rest of the device, it looks and feels pretty much the same, except for two other small changes. Number one, the lightning connector at the bottom has now been replaced by a Type-C port. Thank you, Apple! And number two, the iPad Air 2020 now supports the latest generation Apple Pencil. We also get some new colors, so there's the usual silver, space grey and rose gold, followed by green and sky blue. The biggest change of all though is with the internals. Like the 8th generation iPad, the iPad Air 2020 has also gotten a spec upgrade. Apple has chosen to equip these with the latest A14 Bionic chips. Now, these are the chips that we are expecting to see in this year's iPhone and probably later on even in the iPad Pro. But as of now, the iPad Air 2020 is the only device with the latest generation of Apple chips. And that means, for now, it enjoys a pretty significant power bump. How much of a power bump are we talking about? Well, 40% faster CPU performance, 30% faster graphics, and a whopping 70% faster machine learning compared not to the A13 but A12 Bionic. Anyway, Apple claims that with a full-fledged smart keyboard, mouse, and the Apple Pencil, we should be able to do everything from basic computing tasks to taking notes and even edit 4K videos on the new iPad Air. Now that's something that sounds very interesting to me. So fingers crossed, but we'll try to get our hands on the new iPad Air as soon as possible. And when we do, that's when we'll be able to fill you guys in more about the in-hand feel, the battery life, and heck, maybe even run some benchmarks against the iPad Pro that we have at our C4 ATAC office. But all that's for a future video, if we do manage to go hands-on with the device that is. As for today, that's all from my side. But I want to know what you guys think about these new iPads. Along with the tablets, Apple has also released the Apple Watch 6 and the Apple Watch SE yesterday. Is that something you guys are interested in? Let me know in the comments below, and if enough of you ask for it, maybe we might make a follow-up dedicated video. I mean, there's not much to say except for, well, the new Series 6 watch is about 20% faster than the previous, more energy efficient, and in terms of features comes with the ability to measure and record blood oxygen saturation. It can also track elevation in real time, and there are some new watch faces too. None though will match the face that you guys will make when I reveal the price. 40,900 for a watch. Yes, let that sink in. As for the Apple Watch SE, the so-called budget Apple Watch, well, they're not bringing it to India, and based on the news and renders, it seems to be an upgraded Apple Watch Series 3. And going by the US prices, it wouldn't debut in India at anywhere less than 15,000. So that's a quick look at everything Apple had to launch yesterday. So which, if any, of these products are you most excited for? Let me know in the comments below. As always, like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon if you haven't yet. Thanks a lot for watching till the end, guys. Have a good one. Cheers.